Hello, and welcome to the Motility webinar. In this webinar, we will introduce you to the Motility Company Information module and some of the functions and features located within that module and how they operate and affect other parts of the Motility dealership management system. So, from the main menu, you will launch the Company Information module, which is located directly below the Unit Inventory module. And first and foremost, access to this module should be limited to system administrators at your organization that have a deep understanding of the Motility system and how it operates. And the reason for that is because the settings located within this module have a global effect on the system. It won't be limited to a particular user or set of users, but they do affect the entire system and how it functions, as well as, impacts on the general ledger and the accounting system. So keep that in mind when giving the privilege or access to this module to your user base. All right, so in this module, we'll focus on the general section. We will have subsequent webinars that'll go over the other modules located within company information and their settings. But for this webinar specifically, we will focus on the general tab. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and just itemize and start. So starting on the left-hand panel, the general information is going to be a way for you to record your basic company information. Oftentimes when we install your system, the professional service team will configure this module for you based on a questionnaire that you'll fill out as a part of your setups. So the first item here is your company location and ID. So each location you have or rooftop you have will have a unique ID. It's usually going to be sequential. So the main or master location or corporate location will typically be location 1. Oftentimes that location is considered the main location or corporate location. So the corporation box will be checked. And then you get down to the transfer as box. And the purpose of that box is to determine if you do have multiple locations or rooftops, which of those locations or rooftops function as a single entity from an accounting standpoint. So as you notice here in my sandbox environment, our initial location 1 transfers as 1. Our second rooftop or second location also transfers as 1. So those are a combined entity in accounting. But if we scroll to the end of our setups, you'll notice that our location number 8 transfers as 8. So this location would be considered a separate accounting entity. And essentially what that means is when you run your financial report, such as a balance sheet or an income statement, you will not be able to combine the balances in company 8 with, say, for example, the balances in company 1. Those two companies will function as completely separate entities. And what you'll also see as a side effect of that is when you open the accounting module, you'll get a dialog box that'll pop up and it'll ask you to choose which company you would like to operate in. Right? And so you'll get that dialog box whenever the accounting module is open if you have locations in your company information system that are set to transfer as a separate location. Right, now jumping back into company information. The next you have your profit center. So profit center represents a rooftop. So within a profit center, you're going to have several departments, typically parts, service, sales, finance, etc. All right. Then below that, you have your organization name. All right, so that's going to be your legal organization name, the physical address for that organization, city, state, and region. All right, and that's national region. So if you're in Florida, obviously, or Georgia, Alabama, you'd be in the Southeast. If you're in Washington or Oregon, you'd be in the Northwest, so forth. Then you have your company county. County is important, as well as the city and state, because those things control the sales tax rate that is calculated on your parts and service invoices. Then you have your company country, so you'll indicate there whether it's United States or typically Canada. and then your postal code, and that can be alphanumeric if you are in Canada. Right. Then you have your contact number, so your main sales phone number, your finance fax number, your main parts number, your parts fax, your main service number, and then your service fax. Right, and that's just a base number, not an extension. Then you'll have your sales tax ID, which you'll input. Right below that is an option to turn off the VIN validation. And what the VIN validation is basically when you enter a new vehicle and you enter the VIN number for that vehicle, it's just validating that it's a standard 17-character VIN with the correct characters in the correct positions. So if you're doing something like a boat engine or a snowplow or something like that that doesn't have the standard, VIN number, then you may get a warning that it didn't pass the VIN verification. It's not something that's going to stop you from proceeding, but it's just a warning. If you want to turn that warning off, then you can check off this option here. Next is the use of the cloud scan. So the cloud scan is actually one of our legacy systems. It has since been decommissioned, but essentially what it allowed you to do was to scan documents and attach them to different entities or invoices within the system. But we have since re-engineered that to where in just about every module, you're able to attach a document or an image to entities in all documents. So parts invoices, service invoices, deals, etc. And then jumping up into the upper right-hand corner, you'll have your federal ID number and then your state ID number if applicable. Right below that is your sales tax GST number, and that's going to be primarily for dealerships that operate in Canada. And then you have your selection of whether your primary unit sales are automotive, RV, marine, power sports, or bus. This was previously used to control the image on our previous main menu splash page. In our new system, it doesn't really have an impact, so you can just simply use it as a reference. All right, so if you sell RVs primarily, then your selection here would be RV. Your company location here is your company vehicle location. So in the vehicle inventory system, when you're looking at the company location pick list, it is deriving that location from the company location listed in company info. Typically, it's going to match your company location ID in the company information system. All right, so just to demonstrate that for you, you're looking at initial and current locations here. All right, those locations are derived from this company location, which is ideally going to match this company location at the top. All right. If your organization has a DBA, doing business as, you will list that here. All right, in certain documents and reports throughout the system, it will display your DBA as opposed to your legal name. All right, ELT number, that's your electronic title ID number. So we do have some electronic communications with certain DMVs for certain states. In order for those communications to work, a lot of times we have to have the lien holder's ELT number or dealership's ELT number. So that number is entered here. Next, you'll have your dealer IDs, and there's an option for 3 dealer IDs. A lot of times those are administered by the state, and sometimes it's required that they print on certain forms and documents. So if that is the case, you will enter those numbers here, and then the forms will pull the number into the correct place on the document from this field. All right, next option here is the option to auto number your vehicle. So when you're entering a new vehicle, you have the option to either set your own stock number or have the system auto number and just have it sequentially increment the number whenever a stock number is used. So if you want that option on, you'll check the box. If you don't want it on and you want to set your own stock number, that's more than fine. You can turn this option off. Even with the option on, you still have the option to use your own number. All right, so basically it just generates a prompt when you're adding a new vehicle that asks you whether you want to use the next number in sequence or if you want to use your own stock number. Right below that, there's an option to disable a prompt to add used makes and models to your make model pick list. And then to the right of that, you have the option to choose your odometer type. So if you're working with motorized units, it'll be in miles. If you're working with a boat or something like that, or It'll be in hours or kilometers. If you are using auto stock number, you want to set your new stock number here. So that will be your starting point, and then it'll simply count up from there. The new stock numbers, when you are using auto stock number, cannot be alphanumeric, so you can't do A123. It simply has to be numbers. All right. If you are using auto stock number as well, you have to set the number of digits you want for your stock number. So in this case, we're using a 4-digit stock number. And then below that, you have your language for your message boxes. So that means when you get a little message window that pops up throughout the Motility system, what language do you want those messages to be in? Right. If you are a bus dealer and you perform like fleet sales, there's an option here to turn on multi-vehicle bus sales. And then right below that is your cash drawer beginning amount. So when you open up your cash drawer for the day, it'll default to this amount. You do have the option to change it, and you should if you count the drawer at the beginning of the day and you count an amount that is different than your beginning balance, right? Because if you don't adjust it there, then when you get to the end of your day, your drawer could be off if you don't remember that, you didn't start with the standard amount. Right below that is your time clock server. So when you're logging into the system, if you want your time to read from a different server other than the local machine, then you can set that server IP address here that you want your clock to read from. Below that, if you are a business-to-business entity and you want all of your new entities to default to companies as opposed to consumers, then you can set this option here. And basically, when you're in the CRM or in any module and you're adding a new contact or a new entity, it'll automatically check off the company box for you. Right below that is your Motility account number, and that's simply your support number or support ID. Typically, that's the number we're going to request from you when you call in and create a support ticket. Just below that is your parts and service operating date. So that date is important, and it typically rolls forward on its own. So basically, when you're cashing out a parts and service ticket, if your operating date is behind, then it's going to date that ticket for that date. All right. Then you have your default config path, and basically that's a way for us to point this company location to its corresponding configuration folder in the background. All right, so that's typically not something the dealership has to change. That's something we'll program for you or set up for you when we do your initial installation. And last but not least, there is simply a place to put your website address, and a lot of times that can be used to print on your invoices and things of that nature. So again, this tab is just a general company information that you can use when we set up your system. Again, we'll have subsequent videos within this module that'll cover the finance and insurance, the parts, the service, and the accounting, etc. Those will be separate videos, and we'll post those as those are completed. Thank you for your time, and thanks for listening, and hope you have a great day.